All right, welcome back for another one of these illustrations, paintings. I can never quite figure out what to call this because I do a bunch of drawing and then I do some painting, I guess. And I don't know what that means you have at the end. Some kind of digital art, I guess. Anyway, this is an image of a woman, a portrait. I wanted to try something. I haven't done enough faces, and I want to work on my skills in drawing faces. So I decided to do just a straight on portrait with the angle of view being maybe slightly higher than eye level was kind of the goal. So that's the plan. It always amazes me when I begin these how terrible everything tends to look. And it takes kind of a while until things start to sort of come together in a way that looks decent to me. And it's always helpful when the line work begins to sort of, form to what I imagined when I started, because that really gives me a lot of motivation to keep going. But in the beginning, it's always kind of scary thinking, okay, is this going to work? Am I going to be able to pull this off? And that honestly seems to happen just about every time that I do a new one. So I guess maybe that's just par for the course. Maybe that never goes away. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, drawing her hair. Hair is not something I really enjoy drawing hair, but I don't know that I've found my process for hair. I kind of settle on this sort of spiky kind of feel, which was, I think, in part because I thought it looked cool, and in part because I wasn't really sure what other approach to take. I've looked at a lot of reference images and how, different styles of drawing hair, and I think I just haven't quite landed where I want to land yet. So I think that's maybe going to take a couple more months, years, lifetimes, I don't know, before I kind of get into a groove with drawing human hair. So as I'm kind of working on this and working on her eyes and working on her hair and kind of her overall shape, I'm realizing this looks kind of like fairy tale, almost like elf kind of thing going on, which is entirely accidental. But I think sometimes when that stuff kind of emerges, I just go with it. Just let the thing happen. Let it be what it wants to be. So there's a certain amount of this that is intention, like you have an idea of what you're trying to achieve, and then there's some amount of physical translation between your idea and then what you're doing with your hand. And then there's a certain amount that is, I guess, maybe just chance. And I think I like to have that element of uncertainty as I'm moving forward, and letting like the things that I do by accident or the things that kind of emerge in front of me in the drawing. I like to let that happen. It's funny, as you look at the work of other people, sometimes you try and emulate what they're doing, in a similar style. And a lot of times I find that doesn't work for me. I just kind of have to do things the way that it makes sense in my brain. I can't really extrapolate someone else's style to my own. I just kind of have to let go of that after a while and just do what kind of comes natural to me. And I think that's kind of where I landed on the whole hair thing. I don't know why I'm still talking about the hair. Anyway, so this is the first time I wanted to do some color in this portrait. I've never really done much with color, and I need to begin. I need to start doing that so I can learn how it works and how to get values to function. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna just do a straight on portrait to kind of keep things relatively simple here, and then I'm going to take some time to actually figure out how to add color and add value so that this whole thing can kind of come together. And that's why I kind of stopped in the middle of this, took a pause from all the line work, and just went and messed with color a little bit to make sure that, like, can I get there? Can I go in a direction that makes sense, that's going to look okay? And I'll do that a lot with these illustrations and paintings, is I'll kind of take a break from the thing that I'm relatively sure I can accomplish and go forward a bit and try and do a thing that I'm very uncertain about, to help give me the sense of whether or not I'm moving in a direction that's going to work or not. which is kind of why you see it jump back from color back to line work, over to color, back to line work. And I end up completely abandoning my first attempt at painting her face. In fact, I'm pretty sure I paint her face like 6 or 7 times. In part because the values weren't, from shadow to light weren't quite working the way I wanted, but also skin tones are quite tricky. In photography, skin is a very tricky thing to get right, and that's with the camera, which is making a lot of decisions for you. But when you're painting, you're kind of just having to work from your mind and the imagined lighting in the scene. And I end up drawing her kind of ashen and like she's almost dead or something because her face is too gray. But I'm kind of imagining that this portrait is moonlit, so I want it to be a little less saturated and a little less warm, kind of cooler tones. So I end up running through a couple of different base colors for her face, and it takes me sort of a while to get there. And also in the mix is like I haven't really decided what color her skin is in just daylight. Like, in fact, I never really decided. I don't think. I just kind of kept working at it until I arrived in a place where I thought it looked okay. I also was trying to sort out whether it was helpful to do shadow work first or highlight work first. I don't know that I really settled on a technique one way or another. This is just using the round brush on, I don't know, maybe like 10 to 20% opacity in Procreate, and then I would just pick a shadow and start working with it, and then pick a highlight and start working with it. And I end up going back and forth quite a few times between the two and selecting colors from the actual image itself and working those back in to try and get some sort of variation in value between the darkest points and the lightest points on her face. And obviously I spend like the most time in this image I spent on her face, because that's sort of the focal point of the whole image and of the composition. I feel like I overworked it a little bit once I finished and did some of the color work. I'm not entirely happy with the way the colors worked out, but sometimes I think I have to accept that I've done the best I can at my skill level, and making the image perfect is probably not a very good use of my time. I kind of have to move on to the next one. In fact, that's something I'm sort of learning as I go, is if the effect that I was going for is there, the overall feel for what I was trying to do, like if I achieve that, it's time to sort of do a few details and wrap things up, because otherwise I could spend an eternity on these things for no real reason. I really like how the sky worked out on this one. Getting some like pink tones as if it was just after dusk or before morning. I thought I'd throw some stars in there because I like kind of the general feel that gives. And I'm still into this kind of somewhat blurred out background deal. I'm going to keep doing that because it reminds me of photographs and I like it. So you'll see me spend a lot of time here filling in shadows and highlights on her neck. I never really got her neck to have this sort of cylindrical feel that I think it deserved, but eventually I sort of just gave up. And I realized that the focus of the image is her face, not her neck, and at some point I had to sort of live with where I got it and hope that people would, maybe not gravitate towards looking at that and looking at her face instead. I also cropped this image a couple of times to bring her in. I painted her kind of far away at first, and then I realized at some point, oh, the image is of this person's face. We don't need all of the negative space around her, so let's move in here, and I think that is a stronger composition. I also added a little vignette here at the end where to kind of darken the corners a little bit with the round brush to kind of focus things in. And I like kind of the imprecision of the brush. I've never done a lot of painting or anything, but I quite enjoy kind of how bits are a little bit splotchy and sloppy in places. I don't know. I think it's a cool look. I'm quite pleased with that overall. After enough effort and enough time, we eventually got this thing to be where we wanted it to be. So thanks so much for stopping by and for watching. We'll see you in the next one.